It seems that every time you read a newspaper or watch a television newscast or a local newscast on the radio, you hear about a drug problem here in Butler County. We hear about people having problems, being arrested. We hear about drug busts. Let's find out about the drug problem in Butler County, the extent of it, and what's being done. This is District Attorney Richard Gollinger, and he's here to talk about the drug situation in Butler. And what is the problem here?
Well, the problem, Larry, really goes back almost 20 years at this point. But, I mean, currently what we're dealing with is a heroin epidemic, and we have a lot of crack cocaine, unfortunately, in Butler County as well. Going back 20 years ago, though, when the opioid prescription drugs became very popular with doctors, they were overprescribed during that time. People got addicted to those, and when they didn't have access to them, heroin became the drug of choice for those individuals. It was easy to get, it was cheap, and really in the late 1990s, early 2000s, heroin got a foothold here in Butler County. It's never really left. The problems ebbed and flowed somewhat, but currently it's pretty bad.
Are the dealers local people, or they come from somewhere else?
We do have some local dealers, but they're lower level dealers. Those are the people that are more mules that are dealing to get drugs from the bigger dealers. Most of our most serious drug dealers are not from this area. Some of them might be from Pittsburgh. We know for a fact that a lot of them are from Philadelphia. We have a lot from Detroit, Michigan. They come down here, they set up shop for a weekend, they do their dealings, and then they get out of town. And so they're not permanent residents. They never want to be permanent residents. They come in, they sell, they leave, then they'll return a few weeks later.
Do some of these dealers also deal outside of Butler County or in some of the surrounding areas in southwestern Pennsylvania?
Well, I can't speak to that for sure, but what I can say is other counties surrounding us have the same problem. So would I speculate that they're going to other counties and dealing? Yes. Maybe they're coming down with friends and they're going to different counties. But Butler County is not alone with this problem. It's a problem that's infiltrated all of western Pennsylvania, all of the small towns, the small rural areas, Butler, Newcastle, Indiana, Washington. We're all dealing with the same problem.
All right, so they see a county in southwestern Pennsylvania, they decide they want to do business up here. How do they get their foothold?
Well, really all it takes is for them to know somebody to get them here. And you know, let's say they're coming from Philadelphia. They got a friend that's been out here already, and then they've returned to Philadelphia. So the next time they come out with that individual, there's unfortunately a market in Butler County for people to purchase heroin or crack cocaine. And if somebody that wants to sell knows that, they're going to come here, and that's how they get their foothold. They come, they spend a weekend selling their drugs, then they become known to the people that want to use.
How old are the users?
Well, their age can vary. I mean, they can be anywhere from their teenage years, under the age of 18, early or late teens, early 20s, all the way up to, we've seen people that are overdosing that are in their late 40s, early 50s.
But we hear stories about overdosing and what it does to people, how it disrupts their lives or sometimes kills them. Don't people realize that if they start on drugs, they could be going down that same path?
Well, you and I would agree on that, and you would think that people would realize that when they first use either heroin or crack cocaine, because they become addicted almost upon their first use. However, if somebody has done that, has just tried it as an experiment, and they become addicted immediately, I don't think they have the ability at that point to just say, you know what, I'm going to stop. I think the addiction overtakes them, and without professional help, they're not going to be able to kick the problem.
Let's talk about the law enforcement component here that you're involved with. In fact, you're in charge of generally and maybe specifically. What kind of forces do you have here to find the people who are breaking the law?
Well, obviously, we have the state police. They have their own vice unit, but we have the Butler County Drug Task Force that works directly under me. Detective Tim Fennell is in charge of the task force, and it's comprised of municipal police officers from throughout the county who have been sworn in as special detectives to go out and do drug investigations for the drug task force. They do a tremendous job, the men and women that work on that drug task force. They are facing such an uphill battle, but they work diligently, they don't get discouraged, and they do the best they can with the manpower they have.
How do they know where the problems are?
Well, we have a tip line that people can call, or it's word of mouth mostly. If a patrolman or someone that's a member of the drug task force makes a traffic stop and drugs are located in the vehicle, it becomes something as simple as that we have someone that maybe we can use to infiltrate the drug world. We can use them as a confidential informant to go in and make buys from drug dealers, or they can give information that will allow the police to conduct investigations into potential crack houses or heroin houses that where dealing is going on. So sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's society making calling and reporting high traffic in an area, like a lot of people going in and out of a house. So it can happen in a number of ways, but I can't stress enough that the public being diligent, getting license plates, keeping an eye out at what's going on in your neighborhood is a big way to fight this problem.
Sometimes the public is afraid to do that. They think there might be some reprisals. What can you say about that?
Well, all of our information that we receive from the public is confidential. So if somebody calls to report, that there's high activity, alleged drug activity at a house, they don't know it's drug activity maybe, that we never give their information. They're never even usually contacted. We get the information, and then the investigation starts from there. So any investigation that would be initiated, the subjects of the investigation would never even know how the police would have discovered that this activity was going on.
To try to end all this, and taking the experience you've had over all these years, what works in the whole process?
Well, ultimately, the individual who's addicted has to want help. They have to want to get off drugs. So, there are processes within the county that people can pursue. We have a drug and alcohol program within the county that people can be assessed, and they can send them to treatment. There are many fine facilities that people can attend. Of course, the Geyser Addiction Center is in Butler. They do a great job. There's other facilities in Western Pennsylvania we use. But it does ultimately come down to the individual wanting help. They could have the most support in the world from their family and their friends, but until they're ready to do it and make that move, then it's up to them to do that. We have things in place. For instance, we have prescription drug boxes throughout the county that allows citizens to get their prescription medications out of their medicine cabinets and off the street. So if they have a grandson or a family member that's addicted, they can't use their opioids. We have a drug treatment court in Butler now that helps individuals who it's their last resort, and we've had a lot of success with that. We have a day reporting program also with the county. If you get on probation, they make you report daily, and it's really an intensive program that can help people kick this problem, because they may want to do it and they can go through all the rehabilitation they can, but they still need support once they have completed all that.
If somebody wants to start the process, is there a website they can connect with to get the first information they might need?
Well, I would recommend they go to the Butler County website, and you just type in Butler County, PA, and you can get to the county website, and then click on the drug and alcohol program, it's called. And that would at least give information where they can start the process of seeking help.
District Attorney Richard Gollinger, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you, Larry.
So let's talk about the people who are directly affected by people who have a drug problem. They're drug addicts. And those are the family members who have to live through a long process of treatment and ups and downs. There's an organization called Hope for Broken Hearts right here in the Butler County area. Charlene Eckert is a member of Hope for Broken Hearts. What's the organization for?
It's for family members that are trying to deal with their loved one's addiction. We offer hope and support and education, and our main thing is all about saving lives.
Does it help? After all, everybody has such an individual problem within their homes, and they see the whole process. Somebody's suddenly taking drugs and getting addicted to drugs, and because of that, getting into all kinds of trouble. Just talking to another person, does that help?
Yes, you need to have a release somewhere. We offer confidential meetings we can say, free to say whatever we need to say. Everyone in that room is in the same boat we are, and there's no story that we haven't heard or been through ourselves. And people do need to talk about it, because no matter how good your best friends are, they don't get this unless they're walking in it too. You know, they have to, people that are in this group know what you're dealing with, and they can support each other.
I would imagine they'd come to you in different stages. Somebody soon after the addiction starts, or sometimes much later down the line after some denial and they see some real problems. When they first come to you, just what do they tell you, and what's the first thing you tell them?
We're here for you. The first thing that happens usually with new people, there's usually a lot of tears because they finally have a place to release it. So, you know, we've all been there, so we understand that. And we just talk to them and encourage them to keep coming back. And if our group doesn't work out for them, to come to another group somewhere, you know, find another group, but definitely keep going for the support, because it's definitely worth it. I've seen a lot of people grow and become stronger.
So this is for the parents, or this is for the spouse of the person who has become addicted to drugs. What kind of advice would you give them how they can handle their child or their spouse? What can they do to stop their child or spouse from indulging in drugs?
Well, you really can't stop anybody from doing their free will. But it's not just parents of people of addiction. We have children that their parents are addicted. We have grandparents. We've had husbands, wives, brothers, sisters. It's all ages that come to our group. You just never know any week what you're going to get when you come there. But we can't stop them. I mean, God gives us all free will, and it's up to us to do what we can with it. But once you start on heroin, that messes you up in your brains like nothing else does. And once you start, the first time or two, it changes your brain, how things function inside your body, and it becomes addiction right away.
Well, aren't some of the spouses or the parents feeling some sense of guilt because this happened and maybe they allowed it to happen?
That people do feel guilty, but that's part of our group. You know, you can't change how somebody else lives their life. And it's not your fault they made the choices they did. You know, it was a choice to do it the first time, then it became an addiction. It's nothing that any spouse, family member, anything could have done differently.
How did this organization start, the Hope for Broken Hearts?
It was started because there's a lot of families out there that are really hurting and need support and need education, and they need somewhere to go and just release everything. And I kind of knew for a few years I should be doing this, and I kind of kept dragging my feet, and just all of a sudden it just all fell together, and we've been going strong ever since.
Charlene, if someone needs the same kind of help that you've been getting, can they contact you?
Sure. You can call the church office. It's Mount Chestnut Presbyterian Church, and their phone number is 724-287-7601, and they'll get a hold of me and I'll call them back. Our meetings are on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock every week, and we are in the building behind our church. There's a house behind the church there, and just come. You don't have to call first, just show up. Sometimes we have a handful of people, sometimes we have a room full of people. You just never know from week to week.
Once you somehow understand this and talk to others and maybe feel better because you're not the only one and the person going through this, do you find that many of the families that are in your organization find that there's some success in the treatment program and the recovery program?
Oh, recovery is possible, definitely. But, you know, it's a journey for everyone. It's a journey. And we get them at all stages. People that are just finding out, people that are in recovery, people that have been in recovery for a while. Sometimes we have people that are recovered come and talk to us to help us have that hope that, yeah, you can be clean for 7 years, 3 years, 10 years, whatever. I mean, it's possible. So it helps give families hope that, okay, our loved ones can do this too. So it's always good. We have speakers every now and then, and We just do a variety of different things.
Charlene, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next component we want to talk about, too, is enforcement of the drug problems in Butler County. Butler County Detective Tim Fennell is with, and Tim, you're involved with task forces, you're involved with the county detectives. What team is around to be able to enforce the drug laws?
We have what we call Butler County Drug Task Force that is supervised by the District Attorney's Office. District Attorney Goldinger heads the actual task force. I'm the coordinator for the field operations, and it consists of municipal police officers from Butler County, and the majority of the municipal police officers in Butler County belong to the task force. Right now, I believe we're rostered between 86 and 90 officers.
As you see it, Tim, is Butler County worse than anybody else in the country the way some people think?
I don't believe so. I think you can go to any community in western Pennsylvania, and they're going to tell you they have the same issues and problems. You can also go outside of Pennsylvania, to Kentucky, to West Virginia, Ohio. They all have the same issues. When we go to trainings or we meet with other drug and narcotics enforcement officers, they all have the same issues. Butler seems to be worse because this is where we live and we focus on it, but it is, no worse or no better than any other community.
How do you go about your business? How do you find out where the drug problems are, and how do you attack the problem?
Well, one of the major ways that we know what's going on out in the streets are the municipal officers. They're working out there every day. They're, dealing with the citizens of the community, and they're getting the information. We also get valuable information from the 24-hour toll-free drug tip line that we have that's been in place for probably 20 years. And I also take calls straight to my desk that people obtain a number either from presentations where the number gets put out there, or that they call the police department and they refer them to me as part of the task force. Information comes in from a variety of areas.
Now, Tim, you're familiar with the territory because you were the police chief in the City of Butler Police Department. Have things changed very much since the 6 or 7 or 8 years when you were the police chief?
No, they haven't really changed. Butler changed completely in the early 2000s. Prior to that, we had the crack epidemic, as it was called in the media, and in the early 2000s when it slowly and at first started the heroin, and then it just snowballed. But it hasn't changed too much. It hasn't gotten any worse. It hasn't gotten any better.
When you get tips from somebody on the telephone or through some other means, we ought to give that number first. What was that number?
My office number is 724-284-5225.
When you get those tips, sometimes are they not legitimate tips?
No, usually they're pretty valid. People know that what's going on in their neighborhoods, and they see something unusual, they're probably correct.
And then what do? You find out that there's a lot of people coming in and out of a house, and it looks suspicious, and the neighbors is suspicious. What's the next move?
We try to find out, the players, who lives there, who's coming and going. And then we attempt to find somebody that can buy drugs out of that location.
We all watch television and we hear the phrase reasonable cause. Does that fit into the picture?
Oh, probable cause, yeah. It's not a speedy process in any manner. It's very complicated. Law enforcement has to play by the rules. Drug dealers and criminals don't have rules to play by. But those rules are very specific. The way we develop a case is very specific, and it takes time.
Now, there are problems that sometimes drug addiction causes, and that means they need the money, and they have to get the money. So I suppose there are robberies and break-ins, that kind of thing. Do you deal with that too?
Oh, yeah. A large percent of the crime in our areas, with field drug habits. One of the main ways that they make money is to become drug dealers themselves.
What's going to end all this? What does it take to stop what's been going on here collectively more so than ever in the last few years?
We have to continue down the path we are. Enforcement, treatment, education, everybody has to work together. The whole community.
Is anybody listening, Tim? Because we've been hearing these same comments over the years, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Is it doing any good?
Oh, I believe it is doing good. When you have a rally or a walk or a presentation somewhere about heroin, the population of the audience is growing. People are becoming more aware, more concerned. So it is working. It's going to be a long road, but it is working.
Let's give that phone number again for people that maybe have a tip about some illegal activity. Who do they call?
724-284-5225.
County Detective Tim Fennell, thanks very much.
Thank you.
So we've talked about the problem of addiction. Let's talk about what's being done to help those people addicted to drugs and alcohol. Linda Ferneski is the director of the Ellen O'Brien Geyser Treatment Center right here in Butler. And there are several centers. Linda, when someone comes to you or someone is sent to you, first of all, you have to know what the problem is. Is there just one problem that you work with?
Well, the one problem is addiction, and that includes alcoholism. It's all basically the same reaction. It's a brain disease. So substances hijack your brain. Addictive substances will hijack your brain. So once we get somebody here, right now we're seeing opioids. We have been seeing a massive opioid issue here in Butler and nationally, although not everywhere, but pockets. And right here in Butler, Western Pennsylvania is one of the biggest opioid hotspots in the whole country.
Now, you mentioned opioid. I think some people are not familiar with that term. We know about narcotics. We know about opium. We know about cocaine. We know about those other drugs. Tell me about opioids. Opioids
are things that work on your central nervous system for pain, and they're highly, highly addictive. I don't think anybody realized how addictive they really are when we started distributing them into our society.
Linda, don't doctors prescribe that regularly?
Well, that's how it starts. I think that doctors do prescribe, in our opinion, significantly overprescribe. And I don't think they're doing it maliciously. I just think that's been what they've been taught to do over the last, in the 90s. That kind of became the protocol to kind of, there's no reason why you should be in pain. So we have these pills and we're going to give them to you, and they prescribe them 90 at a time. And people become addicted to the opioids very, very quickly.
So what's the progress from opioids that are prescribed by doctors to the drug market on the streets?
Very, very significant connection there, because probably about 80% of our heroin addicts have started out using prescription. We see a lot of young people that have gotten injured in football injuries in high school and college, and they were introduced by their doctor into an opioid. They became dependent, and then they would shut off. They couldn't get them, so they eventually turned to buying them on the street, which leads to heroin.
Isn't cost a factor in that? Then I understand that the drugs on the street cost less than the prescription drugs?
Oh, very significantly less. The heroin, we're actually seeing grandmothers addicted that didn't start using heroin until their 50s, 40s, because they were able to get, they were addicted to pain pills. And now that the supply is going away of pain pills, they turn to heroin. And we're seeing a lot of people, we are not talking about hardcore criminals in many of these cases. We're talking about some people that are really, really sick.
Now, you say this is a problem here in Butler County. I understand it's a problem across the country. Is this something just in the United States?
Well, let me just tell you a little bit of what my research has shown for me is that United States of America, we have about 4.6% of the whole world's population, the whole globe. But we consume 80% of the whole world's opioid supply. And we also consume 99% of the world's hydrocodone supply, and hydrocodone is Vicodin. So we have these sympathetic doctors that were trained, and I'm not saying that they're doing anything they're malicious. They're not. I mean, most of them aren't. and we have the drug companies that have been, kind of pushing and marketing these pills into our society, and now here we are.
So when they come in here because they're addicted, they're sent here by the courts maybe or some other manner. What do? How does Geyser treat these people who are addicted to drugs?
Well, I guess I'd like to be kind of on record with our experiences that our clients, we call them our clients, they come from many different angles. They come through the courts, they come through families, they come through themselves, a lot of self-referrals. And what we have found is that it doesn't matter in outcomes. So you may come through the court system, or you may come because you want to get your wife off your back or your husband off your back, and the outcomes are the same. Because that's what we do. We do the treatment. The treatment is what changes your thinking.
What is the treatment? What's the magic wand that you use to turn someone from a drug addict into a productive human being?
Well, let me be very clear. There is no magic wand, and once you become addicted, that's a lifelong situation for the person. And the cure for that is abstinence. So how do you get to abstinence? How do you get from an addiction that is ravaging your life and your families and everyone around you to abstinence? For the most part, it's impossible for them to stop. It's absolutely impossible for an addict in the throes of an addiction to stop by themselves. So when they come to us from wherever they come to us, whether they come from another facility, whether they come pick up the phone and call us, it basically starts with an evaluation. We will gather information, biopsychosocial information regarding your history, your drug use, alcohol use. Family history is important because there's a lot of genetic component with addiction.
What would you call a success when someone comes here and then when they leave here after a certain time? What's your measure of success?
Well, that's a really good question because addiction is a chronic illness like diabetes. And I think the way we measure success in the field is successful completion of treatment programs. Because, we provide evidence-based treatments designed specifically to work with addicts and alcoholics to change their thinking and behaviors. And if they are exposed to our treatments, and we're state licensed, so I'm going to imagine state licensed treatment facilities operate similarly with their evidence-based treatment mandates and the credentials our staff has to have. But once they work with us, something changes. If they're with us for a period of time, they have to have changed their minds about something. So if they leave here and they pick up again, that could be part of their journey. If they leave here and they don't use again, that's wonderful. But we do measure our success in the completion of treatments, which we recommend are a continuum of care. There is no quick I'm in, I'm out. Generally, we recommend to be engaged in some level of treatment for a year. And I don't mean inpatient. I mean you can go to an inpatient facility if you meet the requirements. Not everybody does. You can go to outpatient. You can go to varying degrees of outpatient. But we like to connect you for a year.
Linda, there are people watching us today who need help. Might be families, might be the addict themselves. Do you have a website they can contact here at Geyser?
Yes, we have a website that would be a good place to start, and our website is www.geysercenter.com. We have phone numbers on there. We have services that we provide, and you can contact the Geyser Center.
Linda, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're learning about the drug problem here in Butler County, Pennsylvania, and learning about the many agencies doing something to help solve that problem and work with the people who are dealing with that problem personally. I'm Larry Berg. We'll see you next time on Faces and Places.